Brewski posted, "What do these books really mean?" I saw my girl on the cover and I had to watch it. Really, I don't know about this book specifically, but
The Gruffalo by Julia
we'll figure
Donaldson
it out.
is one of the best-selling children's books of all time. Most people read it or consumed a version of it at some point in their childhood. It was first published in 1999, and while the main themes are simple enough to pick up on, a lot of young readers
Okay, what the fuck is that? Um, I just realized that Reddit is literally just the word Reddit. OMG. You learn something new every day, honey.
didn't recognize its darker hidden messages.
I'm
The
slow.
story goes as
Okay.
follows. A mouse travels through a forest in search of some different food.
I just never
On his
realized.
journey, he's approached by various hungry predators, a fox, an owl, and a snake. In an effort to save himself, he makes up an imposing, monstrous creature called the Gruffalo, and his descriptions are enough to scare them off. While the mouse doesn't actually believe the beast exists, he ends up being approached by one at the end and tells it that he's actually the most fearsome creature in the forest. He asks that the Gruffalo follow him back as proof, which it does, and the predators cower in fear at the sight of the monster, while the Gruffalo thinks they're hiding from the mouse. This is enough to scare off the Gruffalo, and the mouse enjoys his meal in peace. Now, the moral is clearly that brains and wit can be a stronger tool than violence and power. While some have criticized the book for glorifying the act of lying at a young age, others speculate that the mouse in the story is actually a metaphor for smaller, less powerful nations using propaganda to intimidate larger forces and manipulate public perception. The mouse is motivated by a desire for more. He's in search of different food
Mouse I
because
know
what
about,
he has in his part of the
if not
forest isn't
Mickey,
enough. And such greed
is
could be a gateway
the one who
to
got that cookie.
authoritarianism. The
You
mouse
feel
is
me?
painted as the good guy because he only lied to
True.
protect himself, though it was greed that compelled him to begin with. But if you really want to change the way you look back on your childhood, what if Piggy from
This looks
Elephant and
familiar.
Piggy was never actually real? Mo Willems was an author
Well, I
that
was
I'm
gonna
sure
say that.
most
I was like, I
people
remember
read at
the
some point,
elephant.
even if you didn't realize it.
It's
His
that
iconic
pigeon.
book, Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, is instantly recognizable. And his
OMG.
stories were very surface level, but he'd insert little details like a pigeon being hidden in almost all his books. And while that was very on the nose, there were more subtle clues in the subtext of some of these narratives. The theory sounds pretty tinfoil hat at face value, but there's a good amount of evidence to support it. Elephant and Piggy first debuted in 2007, and it follows two central protagonists. Gerald the elephant is characterized by being the rational, cautious one who constantly overthinks everything. This is represented even in his physical appearance.
If it's going to be an elephant, 9 times out of 10, they're smart. That's kind of what, like, I think they're known for. But I don't remember this pig. Like, am I tripping?
He's an elephant, large, heavy, and slow, which symbolizes the stressful weight of overthinking. He wears glasses, which could represent his need for clarity and perceiving reality. Piggy, on the other hand, is spontaneous, optimistic, fearless. She's driven entirely by having fun and exercising emotional freedom. Gerald's also a real name, while the pig is just named Piggy. Piggy is constantly trying to push the elephant into being more confident and doing things that he's not comfortable with, like going to parties.
Why would you pick
Gerald
Gerald?
remains skeptical. The theory suggests that Piggy is the manifestation of what Gerald wants to be, but doesn't have the mental strength to do so.
I rewatched one of my videos. Sorry, I know I'm talking over him. I'll go back. But I rewatched one of my videos. I was like, bro, why am I so loud? Y'all can tell me to chill the hell out. Maybe I need to turn my mic down.
Manifestation of what Gerald wants to be but doesn't have the mental strength to do so, maybe as a result of some past trauma. And yeah, if you haven't picked up on it already, like a kid's version of Fight Club, Tyler Durden is everything that the narrator is not, and drives him forward in a similar way. In one of the entries of the series, I'm a Frog, Piggy acts like a frog, and Gerald is immediately convinced that Piggy could have suddenly taken on a new form. He becomes genuinely distressed, stating that he was sure 5 minutes ago she was a pig, talking to himself as if Piggy wasn't even there and his mind was playing tricks on him. Usually they just interact with each other and a few other characters, but occasionally there's a meta moment where they directly identify the reader. Specifically, we are in a book. Gerald randomly goes, I think someone is looking at us. Piggy never realized this until Gerald pointed it out, and then she noticed right away. Gerald finds out the book is gonna end at some point, which leads to him freaking out and having an existential crisis. The final book released in 2016.
I forgot. It's a lot. That's a lot for a kid's book.
and was
to
titled
touch
The
on.
Thank You Book. Piggy goes on a thanking spree, showing their appreciation for all the characters that have made appearances. Piggy is taking center stage, doing all the talking for Gerald up until the very end, where Gerald is the one that recognizes one last person. The only one that Gerald addresses is the reader. Gerald tells Piggy that she did a great job thanking
that makes
everyone, and Piggy
him
says
the
it was
most
all thanks
powerful
to Gerald.
in the
This is
verse.
a weird
He's the
line
most
to end
powerful
with
in the book
because,
verse.
again, it was Piggy that did all the talking. Unless she didn't. This whole finale could be seen as Piggy finally being let go, because Gerald becomes self-aware and doesn't need her anymore, while the reader serves as a representation of the outside world or even God to
Why is
him.
this
A lot
so
of famous
deep?
picture books about behavior center around a
I
character
fucking
who's
hated
such an
David.
exaggerated troublemaker that it forces the reader to take on the role of a
That's my
parent
mouse
or
right there.
teacher and sympathize with the characters who had to discipline them. No David would be an example, or Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, but some authors took it in a different direction with stories that challenged authority. In particular, Click Clack Moo, Cows That Type by Doreen Cronin. The story is really simple. Some cows on a farm decide they're not satisfied with their working conditions and the barn is too cold at night. So they use an old typewriter to request electric blankets, and when the farmer refuses, they
Electric
go on
blankets
strike,
are
denying
such a
him
game
any
changer.
more
They're
milk.
right.
This inspires
They're
the
right.
hens to also go on strike so he doesn't have milk or eggs. Eventually, the farmer gets a message from the duck, a neutral party, requesting the blankets in exchange for the typewriter. He complies, but the next day he gets a note from the ducks asking for a diving board for their pond.
What the chickens gotta do with milk?
It's a lighthearted story about negotiating and having a voice, but it's aimed at ages 3 through 8, a pretty early stage to learn about Marxism and labor exploitation, which is why some have suggested it had other, more extreme agendas. Perhaps the book is amusing and filled with laughter, but teaching our children how to strike and how to organize and create a union is wrong. We are a capitalist society. Liberals and progressives are now aiming at your children, much the same that the German governments did in the 1930s. Wow, does history repeat itself, or
This
what?
is, like,
Do yourselves
so
a
deep
favor
for
and
some
educate
kids'
yourselves
books.
to what collective socialist progressives are trying to do to you and your children before it's too late. The book is a lesson about socialism. It's about trade negotiation and has no lesson about how to be a respectful son or daughter, be a good friend, to get along peacefully with others.
Because essentially, right, I could see it being like, oh, like, don't teach. No, though, because I don't know. Maybe it's something that they have to learn later along the line so that they can fully grasp it and not do no, like, dumb shit, essentially. I was trying to look for a better word, but yeah. And it's like, okay, don't teach them to rebel, go on strike, because what if you're trying to get your kid to do chores and they're like, no, no more. I'm standing up today. You don't want that. But overall, the lesson isn't crazy. What is the illustration I'm seeing with the one to pass
people around us, or how to love ourselves?
Oh, that's the cows.
Most of
That's the
Cronin's
cows.
other work is very inoffensive and kid-friendly, so it's unclear what the true intentions were with the book. It was probably just another unserious story featuring farm animals, though that didn't stop parents from being paranoid about it indoctrinating children with socialist ideals. The rainbow fish had a similar effect and is even more controversial.
I don't remember what the book was
a
about.
colorful fish gives away all his scales to the other fish who were jealous of him, and it makes him feel fulfilled. It was intended to promote generosity and selflessness, but the book's been criticized, especially in conservative circles, for pushing a communist agenda.
The idea that it is absolutely moral, that if somebody comes to you and asks for something, that you are now supposed to give away everything that you have earned, and this is somehow good for society.
Not the point of the book.
I have serious moral objections with Rainbow Fish, which makes it a perfect SJW book. Very popular.
Okay, I guess. But I thought the moral was like, okay, well, you show him give everything out, and then what happens at the end? Did you just say that? I don't forget my speech.
With the commie crowd.
A Bad Case of Stripes by David Shannon one that didn't exactly have an underlying political message and actually had some really strong, clever themes. Yet it still managed to traumatize countless young readers since it was published in 1998. It has some of the most grotesque, unsettling imagery of any children's book, and if you didn't know what it was about, you wouldn't even think it was meant for kids. People who grew up reading it were so distracted by the jarring artwork that it was easy to miss the point of the story and overlook some
I
of
do
the
remember some of the pages
symbolism.
being a little
It's a book
creepy.
about personal identity. A girl named Camila Cream loves lima beans, but she's too scared to admit it because she thinks everyone will make fun of her. But suppressing these feelings leads to her waking up one morning with colored stripes all over her body. When she goes to school, all her classmates ridicule her, yelling out various shapes and colors that get projected onto her skin. Throughout the book, doctors and therapists attempt to give her remedies and cure her, but everything they
Dr.
try
Grot.
only makes the condition worse, eventually taking on the shape of her room. It isn't until an older woman visits at the end and offers her lima beans that
I mean,
Camila goes back to her
it was a weird
normal self.
illustration,
One
but
detail that's easy to miss is the girl's name, Camila, as in chameleon. The stripes themselves are a uniform pattern. They serve as a motif for conformity. When Camila hides her personality to fit in with everyone else is when the stripes first appear. The doctors and the medicine they give her represent society trying to fix people's differences rather than accepting and celebrating them. All the other patterns and shapes she adopts are the visual representation of letting people code a false identity onto others until they become lost in the act. All the characters wear plain, formal clothing except for the woman at the end. She's wearing bright colors with polka dots and an unconventional hat. The woman is unapologetically herself and is the one that shows Camila how to do the same.
This made me want to try to eat my beans. That's what this book made me do at the end of the day. And I realized they're still nasty.
In most cases,
and
people read
that was
these
okay.
when they were like 8 and haven't revisited them since. So there was a lot to be overlooked. Let me know your thoughts and if I missed something.
The hell was that? Nah, like I didn't like that TV noise. That Teletubbies video, crazy thumbnail. That makes the baby look so demonic. Anywho's, yeah, I never thought that deeply about none of the books I was reading growing up, and I don't think you were supposed to as the kid. But do people still read books to their kids, or is that dead? Like, just get an iPad now.
Overlooked. Let me know your thoughts and if I missed something.
And then they gonna do it again. All right, yeah, that's the video.
Let
That's
me
the
know your
video.
thoughts and